So good afternoon. Welcome back to our conference. We have a very intensive afternoon and evening, as you know, not only because of the academic activities, but also because we have later this bike ride and the dinner. But previously we have three presentations. Not only the two that were initially scheduled for today, but also the one that we missed yesterday in the morning. So we will have three presentations here, and after that we have the parallel sessions up on the third floor. Well, we will begin with Giuseppe Colangelo and Mariateresa Maggiolino. They came from Italy. They are assistant professors at the University of Basilicata and the University of Bocconi, Milan. And they are going to present us a paper they have made together about data accumulation and the privacy-antitrust problems that appear. Well, I leave you with them.
Thank you. We will share the presentation, so we will have a sort of dynamic presentation. Thank you for, probably you are able to hear me also without the microphone, because I'm quite deaf. Okay, but I'll try also through the microphone. Thank you for having us here. We are glad to share the info on our work. The topic of our work is related to something that has been already addressed in previous presentation from different perspectives, but there is a lot of interrelation between them. Our work is mainly focused on the assessment of the antitrust tools against data accumulation. We moved from the recent and still ongoing German proceeding against Facebook that give us also the possibility to address also the interface between privacy and antitrust, let's say from a different perspective that is, it seems that at least is the perspective that seems to be endorsed or supported by the German authority, but we will discuss about it in a while. Our presentation is structured in three parts. I will briefly describe the main feature of the German proceedings. Then Mariateresa will address our main research question, discussing about the main antitrust provision involved in the proceedings, and also about the interface between privacy and antitrust. And then we will conclude discussing about potential remedies and other options that may be still on the table. As you may see, we are discussing about a proceeding that is still ongoing, so we are not aware about the outcome. We try to figure out what may be, both in terms of remedies and in terms of reasoning of the proceedings, and then we will discuss about how the outcome is grounded or not. Just a brief description about the proceeding. The ongoing German proceeding against Facebook is mainly related to the data accumulation strategy of Facebook. It means that the main concern of the Bundeskartellamt is related to the fact that Facebook makes the users of its network conditional as being allowed to collect any kind of data generated when the user is using a third-party sources, and so Facebook is able to merge this data with the data collected in the user Facebook account. So the main focus of the German Competition Authority is on what we may call the off-Facebook scenario. It means not the data that are collected inside the Facebook network, but on third-party sources. Third-party sources means two different sources, let's see, in terms of categories, sources that are related to services that is owned by Facebook, mainly Instagram and WhatsApp, but also website and application of other operators that embed Facebook application programming interfaces, such as the like button, the Facebook login, or Facebook Analytics. And the we split our description of a case in 2 episodes because up to now we have 2 press releases provided by the German competition authorities, and we try to, let's say, to compare and contrast these 2 press releases, and we highlight the relevance of the term also, that you may find in red, because in the first press release, the main claim of the German competition authority was that Facebook is abusing its dominant position, imposing unfair terms. So we are discussing about the Article 102, letter A of the treaty of its service about the collection of user data, and the evaluation of this term and condition has been made mainly on privacy grounds. Means that according to the German competition authority, these terms and conditions are not in line with data protection rules. And furthermore, when you hold a dominant position and there is a link between this kind of infringement of the data protection rules and your role on the marketplace, such as the against the market dominance, this could also constitute an abusive practice under competition law. So the starting point of the proceeding of the German competition authority is that the main concern relates to the fact that users are not aware of the way in which Facebook is collecting data, is using data. This is for sure, according to the German competition authority, a data protection violation. Okay? When there is a link between your dominant position in a market that rely on data such as an essential factor, and there is so a relationship between your dominant position and a privacy violation, it could be also a violation under antitrust provision. Our main reaction, our first reaction to this first press release is that even if you are the only one that believe in the superpower of antitrust, despite the compelling presentation of NIAM, you may be concerned that there should be some risk when you build up an automatic link between a data protection violation and an antitrust violation. Okay? So our main concern that we addressed in a previous paper is that if you release a statement when you create a sort of connection between privacy and antitrust, it seems that you are trying to, let's say, fill some privacy gaps through the antitrust lens. However, in the second episode, that is the most recent press release of the German competition authority, that include also a preliminary assessment and a background information on the ongoing proceeding, the German authority answered to this kind of concern, stating clearly that Facebook terms and conditions are unfair, apart from any privacy infringement. However, they are applying also data protection principles. So as you may say that you are again dealing with the term also, but the factor of the dealing has been changed. Okay, in the previous episode, data protection also antitrust violation. In this case is antitrust violation also applying data protection. Okay, so our concern has been addressed in this from this perspective by the German competition authority. What are the theory arms under this investigation? Two different theory arms. A first arm that is related to user arm, that is pretty clear in the press release, because consumers are not aware about the way in which Facebook is collecting data and is not aware about Facebook is using data. So the main harm related to the user is that fact that they are losing control over their digital identities. Okay, that is a pretty clear privacy concern. Then we may discuss about the implication under antitrust violation, but it's pretty clear that is a privacy concern. The second one is clearly a competitive arm, it's a market arm, that relates to the two-sidedness of the Facebook's platform, and is mainly focused on the other side of the platform. And according to this claim, Facebook, through the collection of this data also on third parties, able to entrench its dominant position and impairing competition in the advertising market. So it's clearly a competition concern, mainly focused on the other side of the platform. Unfortunately, so far, this kind of harm and this kind of concern has not been exploited by the German Competition Authority, because if you read both the press release, this is stated, but is not exploited, okay? So it's quite, let's say, in the shadow, okay? And maybe we will discuss on this aspect in the last part of this presentation. And lastly, about the description of the case. What about the relevant market and the dominant position of Facebook? The definition of the relevant market was pretty narrow. We are just in Germany. We are talking about just social networks, okay? And the oh, sorry, I don't know. Okay, was not able to see the line. Okay, and the dominant position, that is, according to the proceedings, a quasi-monopolistic position held by Facebook, is mainly related to the effect coming from the direct network effects that is provided not only by the size of the social platform, but also from the identity-based network effect. We will discuss this in the last part of the presentation, because it could be quite relevant in terms also on remedies, okay? Indirect network effects, and there is also a limited room on multi-homing in Germany. Okay? Because according to the German Competition Authority, the German user of the social network are not able to find several options into the market, so they are not used to switch to other social network. So the narrative goes on discussing about barriers to entry, user are locked in, they find difficult to switch to other platform, and so that's the position, the dominant position on Facebook, and we may move on discussing about our main research question.
Okay, well, as Giuseppe was saying, in the second press release of the German Competition Authority, one idea was affirmed in a very clear way. The data accumulation helps Facebook to entrench its dominant position. As he was saying, the Competition Authority did not develop this claim, but this is what we try to do in our paper. Try to understand how data accumulation can be considered an antitrust violation. And so, since we are talking about a dominant firm, you know better than me that when it comes to unilateral conduct, the only way to show that they are anti-competitive or abusive is to show that they are both exclusionary and anti-competitive. So first of all, is that accumulation exclusionary? Well, you could say, and sometimes in the literature you find this argument, that a firm which collects data can improve its products. By knowing better its users, it can provide better and better products for its users. And as a consequence, the company can conquer the market by attracting more and more users via personalized services and products. But if this is exclusionary, if this is one argument to say that the conduct is exclusionary, there are other two arguments to say that the conduct is not exclusionary at all, that data accumulation, this is the conduct I'm addressing, is not exclusionary at all. First of all, let's look at the conduct that Facebook undertook. It embedded its technology on other websites. Well, those websites are free to embrace, to include the technologies of other social networks or the technologies of other people who are interested in collecting data. Maybe Facebook is doing that in an unfair way, but the possibility of including, of embedding that technology is open to the competitors of Facebook. So Facebook, by collecting its data, is not actually foreclosing rivals from doing the same. And more, as I said as we said in our second argument, there is no real bottleneck as to the access of data, and so we cannot really argue that Facebook accumulation of data prevents Facebook rivals from doing the same. So, in a kind of conclusive way, we could say that the conduct is not exclusionary, so there is no way to apply Article 102. But let's take for granted that, on the contrary, the conduct is exclusionary. The second prong of the test requires us to show that the conduct reduces consumer welfare. Now, data accumulation does not reduce output. We cannot imagine any way in which data accumulation can ever reduce output. Output about what? About the services that Facebook provides? About the kind of analysis that you can run by reading those data, by analyzing the data? No. So there is no output limitation here. No decrease in the rate of innovation either, because since you collect data, that's not there is no reduction in innovation. On the contrary, we could argue that the more data you have, the more products you can offer, and so there is an increase in variety. So again, how could we ever argue that data accumulation is anti-competitive? But you may develop other two theories of harm that help the German authority, that could help the German authority in supporting the idea that Facebook, who is unfairly accumulating data, is also harming competition. And when I say competition, I mean the competitive mechanism, the functioning of the market. For example, you can go for the implicit price theory of harm. What is this? We have read many papers, tons of papers, saying that data are the new currency on the internet because we exchange free products for data. Okay, so what? So one could argue, one can develop the argument and say, well, one datum equals 1 unit of currency. And so the overcollection of data that Facebook is doing equals an overcollection of equals a super-competitive prices. Makes sense? So the idea is when we are in markets where there are positive prices goods would have positive prices, we can charge extra prices higher, much higher than marginal costs. In markets where prices are zero, we can extract an extra amount of data, an amount of data superior to the amount of data that we would extract in perfect competition. And therefore, the harm would be this one. Facebook collects extra data from the users of third-party websites, which is essentially tantamount to a price increase on the markets for the services offered by those third-party websites. So if we go back to the previous slide, and we wonder about the elements of consumer welfare that could be harmed, well, that accumulation increases prices. Okay? Because of this theory of harm. Yet, Giuseppe and I do not really agree with this theory of harm. First of all, because we don't know the amount of data that a firm should collect in perfect competition. We miss the benchmark. How can we argue that Facebook is extracting an extra amount of data if we don't know the amount of data that should have been extracted in perfect competition? Second of all, well, when we talk about currencies, we address things which have a nominal value, meaning things that have the same value for every people involved. When it comes to data, we cannot do that because data have no nominal value. And so interpersonal comparisons are not possible. And so you cannot really discuss about a market price. And if you miss this aggregated measure, all the theory of the implicit price falls down, does not make any sense anymore. Indeed, and then, third argument, when we say that data accumulation increases prices, what's the relevant market we are addressing? The market of the services of the platform where Facebook embedded its technology, or other services? It is not clear. So this theory of harm, this theory of the implicit price, according to us, does not work to argue that data accumulation is anti-competitive, meaning reduces consumer welfare. But there is another theory of harm that someone can play, the one that he was addressing before us, the quality theory of harm. What it stands for? Well, it pivots around this chain of implications. A reduction in privacy amounts to a reduction in quality that, as we know, amounts to a reduction in consumer welfare. Why do we have a reduction in privacy in the first place? Because the more data we extract, especially in an unfairly way, the less privacy-friendly we are towards consumers. So one could argue that as long as to be privacy-friendly is a qualitative feature of a product, the less privacy-friendly you are, the less good the product is. And as a consequence, consumer welfare decreases. And so one could argue that data accumulation is anti-competitive because it increases Facebook capability to intrude in users' lives and as a consequence reduce quality and reduce consumer welfare. Our counter-argument to that is that are we sure that we can take this this chain of implication for granted? Is it always true? Maybe there are markets where it is true. I don't want to say that it is impossible. But maybe there are other markets where it is not true. Because quality does not depend only on privacy. It may depend on other features of the products, such as price. And more than that, quality, a product can be of high quality if it is very fast, if it is very accurate, even if it is not privacy friendly. So to assume that a reduction in privacy entails automatically a reduction in quality is a strong value-based assumption. It's not an empirical assumption. So again, maybe this theory of harm could work in theory, but to apply it in a specific case, we should have evidence that shows that in that case, the reduction in privacy amounts to a reduction in consumer welfare. And so what is our final claim? That in the end, although the second press release talks about this data accumulation with very antitrust words, so it talks about the entrenching of the dominant position and the possibility for Facebook to reduce competition and the ability of its rivals to enter into the market and so on, actually the Bundeskartellamt has no real argument to argue that data accumulation is both exclusionary and anti-competitive, as it should be, to be unlawful under Article 102. And therefore, the only thing that the Bundeskartellamt can do is to play not with 102b, so exclusionary and anti-competitive conduct, but to play with 102a. So to argue that the conduct is unfair. And what do we think about that? Well, we totally agree. We totally agree that Facebook conduct is unfair. And not because of privacy violation, but because we have a list of cases, not so many, but still we have them, saying that if terms and conditions are unjustifiably unrelated to the purpose of the contract, unnecessarily limiting the freedom of the parties, disproportionate and unilaterally imposed or seriously opaque, I don't know how to say it in English, opaque, well, these terms and conditions are then unfair under 102A. And that's pretty clear. We have nothing against that. But our main point of view, and then Giuseppe will conclude on this better than me, is we are talking about 102A. which is a regulatory provision within the abuse of dominance law, which has nothing to do with the competitive market and the protection of the competitive mechanism, which has more to do with fairness, which is totally fine, but you know, this is the strange guy on the block when it comes to antitrust law.
Yes, because when you are following this line of reasoning, this path, and you are using an antitrust proceeding to cure a privacy disease, you run the risk that when it comes to the remedy, there could be a mismatch between your concern and the remedy that you are able to apply, because it's pretty clear that your concern is a competition concern, okay? But when you are running through the 1 or 2 letter A, and you are relying mainly on, as we mentioned at the beginning, on privacy principle, the remedy will be privacy based. If you are complaining that the user are not aware, then your remedy will be increase user awareness. And how you may increase user awareness? Making sure that the tables will change its disclosure policy, that will deliver any condition and in terms about how he's collecting data from third party. That, by the way, is something that Facebook, at least in Europe, has to do in any case, according to the recent GDPR, okay? So the main problem is that if your concern is a competitive concern, data accumulation as a way to entrench dominant position and foreclose the market, then at the end of the proceeding, probably you are just able to guarantee a fair data collection through a privacy-based remedies. And you are not able to challenge your main concern, that is through the collection of data on third party, Facebook is able to entrench its dominant position. And we are going to conclude. It's pretty useful to take into account other authority that deals with the same or pretty similar facts, and their outcome is completely different from the German one. The Italian Competition Authority runs a couple of proceedings against Facebook. One related to the WhatsApp-Facebook merger in terms, again, on the way in which Facebook comply with the provision according to the merger agreement, and so the way in which they collect data also from WhatsApp, and the other one on literally third-party sources. And the final outcome of the Italian Competition Authority is to fine Facebook for a consumer violation, an unfair commercial code. Okay, and so you have a pecuniary fine. Then you have another remedy that is just related to the way in which you are dealing with the policy of terms and conditions. Recently, also the Brussels Court of Instance addressed the same illegal conduct of Facebook, and the final outcome will be a privacy and cookie violation rules. Okay, next one. And you may also compare the final outcome of the German proceeding on some statement recently released by the European Commissioner in an interview of a couple of days ago, and of course there were questions about the German proceeding, and her answer was that, okay, we took into account and we are eager to understand how they develop this proceeding. However, when it comes to just a privacy violation, we do believe that this kind of concerns are already addressed by the GDPR, okay? And so there could be no such concern according to the European Commission, because we have already a body of law that in Europe will address this kind of problem. We are pretty concerned on the other concern, the market concern, the one that I mentioned at the beginning, the other side of the platform. So, according to the best argument, we try to understand if and when the social media, Facebook, is able to entrench the dominant position because it is able to restrain competition on the advertising side. That, as I mentioned before, it's the part of the investigation that has not been exploited or addressed by the German Competition Authority. And the last one slide. And so, as we try to describe, there is a clear antitrust concern that has been addressed through a privacy principle, and so probably will end up with a sort of privacy-based remedies. Then we try to, and that's the reason why we do believe that according to the fact that has been under investigation, the better tool to solve this kind of concern would be in Europe the unfair commercial practice provision. Then we try also to investigate if there are other options on the table on the real concern, the data accumulation. Okay, and so we try to address three different options. The one that is related to the essential facility doctrine. We have to admit that we suffer of a significant bias against the essential facility doctrine, but forgetting about this, even those who support the application of the essential facility doctrine agree on the fact that when it comes to data, it's pretty difficult to satisfy the 3 or 4 requirements under the European case law. Probably, quite certainly, the better way to address data accumulation concern is through merger control. However, as been discussed previously in a previous presentation, mainly focused on the interface between antitrust and privacy, so far all the merger has been clear without any kind of divestiture on related to data accumulation. And lastly, we have a regulatory option that comes again from the GDPR, the data portability, that as clearly as aims to reduce the switching cost of user. Probably not all the switching costs we are concerned about, because probably when it comes to data portability, you cannot take into account the identity-based direct network effect. Remember the second slide, because through data portability you are able to switch to another platform, but you do not bring your let's say your contacts to the other platform. Okay, so you are able to address some of the switching costs, not all the switching costs, and that's probably the reason why someone in the literature has tried to envisage a sort of a larger data portability that is related to the identity portability. So you are getting to another platform, but you are still able to deal with the context to the previous platform. That is probably a fancy way to describe the inter-platform compatibility or portability. That would see a huge regulatory solution. Probably we are not supporting this kind of solution, but as we may say, if you are looking at the data accumulation strategy, probably your better solution would be or the merger control or the regulatory approach. Okay, thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. We have still 10 minutes in order to do the questions. So, yeah.
Oh, okay. I start? Well, I do think that if they go for 102A, they take a decision which is pretty consistent with the law. Then we could discuss about the opportunity to use that letter of Article 102. But since the Bundeskartellamt cannot apply consumer protection law, maybe that was the only path available to them. So let me say it again. Maybe since we have more a Chicagoan approach to competition law, we are not great supporters of 102A in general, but in this specific case, if they have to do something, if they have to walk on a path, that is the path to walk, according to us. Then the problem, as Giuseppe was saying, remains as it was. Facebook will be fined. It will receive a remedy that says, disclose your policy, make your user aware. It will disclose the policy, it will make the users aware, and it will keep on collecting data, as it has always done. And so if we worry that those data are what prevents Facebook rivals from entering to the market, from providing users with better products, and so on, we won't solve the problem with a disclosure remedy. That's our main claim.
Just to add a little thought, I do believe that the Italian Competition Authority approach was the right one. Okay, but just to be again provocative, you are not able to gain the cover page of. No one is aware of the Italian competition investigation, and there's been a couple. Okay, the fine was pretty huge. Okay, according to Facebook turnover, probably not, but overall is a huge fine. The problem is that you are not able to capture the attention of a larger audience. Even the Italian audience is not aware of the Italian Competition Authority investigation. In this case, if you proceed under the antitrust provision, you are able to get the attention not only in Europe but also in US, because you are fighting against a monster, okay? And so you are the good guy. The problem is that then you have to conclude your investigation and finding something to make them liable. The main concern, if you want to run an antitrust proceeding, is to look to the other side. So you have to build up a pretty complicated but quite interesting case on the way in which Facebook is able to restrict competition on the advertising side. That would be a good, interesting, and huge competition proceeding, but probably the final outcome is not so sure as if you proceed under the unfairness proxy. And due to the fact that we have very few cases on the unfairness, we are still struggling trying to understand what does it mean an excessive price. Now we have to understand what is an excessive terms and condition. It's quite questionable, let's see, from an antitrust perspective, and I do not believe that other competition authority will follow this path. Okay, but obviously they will do probably.
Yes. Do we have more questions?
But how? I mean, when Andres Moon says that, he should tell me what is the mechanism whereby you exclude. Now, if what makes the exclusion happen is data accumulation, whether it is fair or unfair doesn't matter. Unless what you are saying is that the exclusion is due to the extra amount of data that you get because of unfairness. Now, you should make an empirical analysis saying, if I was fair, if they were fair, they would collect 100. Since they were unfair, they collect 150. The exclusion is caused by the additional 50. Now, if they were able to do that, I would be amazed. Okay? But if they don't do that, and if they say that just the unfairness of the data accumulation determines the exclusion, my answer back is no, it's data accumulation that creates exclusion, and then you should distinguish between good data accumulation and bad data accumulation.
May I add something, just a few words? Thanks for your question, because you give us the chance to clarify the scenario. It's not a problem of the provision, just that issue. It's the problem of the reasoning that you are trying to, in which you are trying to proceed. As again, you may rely on the unfairness, then you have to demonstrate how. The main problem, if you look the two press release, then probably in the final one they will have another U-turn, and so we will find out how they are able to build another case. But if you look at mainly the second press release that includes the preliminary assessment, again, they just was focused on the privacy concern, the fact that the user are losing control on data. They do not address the main antitrust concern, that is the restriction on the advertising side. So then you may try to rely on the unfairness to say, okay, but you are able to entrench dominant position, restrict competition on the other side. Then we will discuss about how you are able to build your reasoning. In the materials that are available so far, this point, that is the antitrust topic, is not addressed. There is just a statement that we look also, but all the focus of the press release is on the user digital identity. That's the reason why they state we also apply privacy protection rule. When you look at the advertising side, you do not need to apply privacy protection rules. It's useless for you. Okay, you are all kind of antitrust or arms you may rely on.
So we don't have so much time, so 15 seconds and 50 seconds, and
Very short
we take
answer.
both questions, but really short ones.
What I was wondering is whether you see any reason to distinguish between Article 101 and 102 when you consider the theory of harm based on the data accumulation and the reduction of the consumer welfare based on the assumption that more data you collect and higher the price income. Because otherwise, I mean, I'm not really convinced by the idea to consider that as a currency, mainly because if you securities is under Article 102, but if you just use the same idea under Article 101, it would tend to consider that, for example, technical standards by company are just cartel, that I know that national legislation require fixing standards would be probably triggering the application of Article 106 and 101. So
Okay.
So the other question, really quick, and then
my question is related to what relationship between self-exploitation or unfair practices, but also possibly how practices so you mentioned that data privacy breaches are not relevant in this discussion. But do you see a possibility that companies might claim, well, I mean, there is a certain point of dominance
really quick answer.
Quickly, okay.
And we call this first session.
Okay. I totally agree with you. We use the implicit price theory because in the literature there is this argument, but we do not agree with that. Indeed, the following questions we ask: how can we consider data as a currency since they have no nominal value? Was due to your doubts. We don't think that data are like currency in a technical world. To answer your question, I think that your question admits an empirical and a theoretical answer. The empirical answer is, if the question is, can a company that breaches privacy law and many other laws acquire dominant position? And the answer is yes. The theoretical question is, can antitrust law prosecute those breaches as antitrust violations? And well, my answer is a very annoying answer, and is yes, as long as antitrust law or the judges behave consistently with the law. So, as long as the elements, the liability conditions that must be met to have a Section 2 violation, Section 1 violation, 101, 102 are met. If they are met, no problem. If they are not met, the question is, should we force the law beyond its boundaries? My answer, since I am a conservative in this field, is no.
Thank you very much. So, thank you, Giuseppe, and thank you, Mariateresa. It has been...